Welcome to Unity Talks, where the hiring experts of Dallas-based recruiting firm Unity Search engage in lively discussion with successful business leaders to dissect their careers and how they got to where they are today, the obstacles overcome to reach their success, and steps they've taken to stay at the top of their respective fields. So listen in as we provide you with the thought-provoking conversation and ideas that keep industries moving forward.
And welcome back to another edition of the Unity Talks podcast. I'm your host, David Cathey, one of the partners at Unity Search here in Dallas, Texas, though we do have offices in Houston and Central Texas that covers both Austin and San Antonio. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. We are here to talk about today Crucial Conversations. There's actually a book called Crucial Conversations, and a few years ago at Unity, we chose that book as our book club book. And we had, maybe we were like 20, 21 employees at the time. And I think probably 75% of the employees participated in that. It's probably a book that we would want to read again. In fact, it may be a book that we need to read once a year. I know it's probably good for me to read that once a year. But we have a guest that's going to help walk us through that. Not just really the book, but we just want to talk about Crucial Conversations in general. Because I'd be willing to bet this guest will say that every day you are having a lot of crucial conversations, even though you may not know it. So our guest today is Roberto Canales. Roberto, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate being here.
Yeah, absolutely. So Roberto is the CFO of a company called Neora. And as you guys know, the way I start off this podcast is to let him give us a 2-minute commercial on Neora. So tell us about Neora.
Certainly. Neora is a skincare wellness direct-to-consumer company. We use a direct distributorship, e-commerce platform that we sell all of our products to. The products range from skincare to health to hair care, weight management, and the product is sold. Like I say, belly to belly by people who know their audience, and they're selling them to family and friends. It's a model that is widely used across the world. You would potentially hear it as multi-level marketing. I never use the word multi-level marketing because it is a taint, I think, of the industry. We are a direct to consumer product because we don't allow our distributors to buy the product and just to consume the product to be able to create their commissions out of that purchase. Okay, that's just not the way we allow it. We've never allowed it, and it's one of those things that the industry looks to us as the poster child for the right model to actually sell the products that we sell.
Love that.
We're really proud of that.
Love that. That's good. That's good. We were talking earlier about how clean the products are, and that's expensive, and they do the best that they can to get those products clean these days, because that is a differentiator.
For sure, it is, and you compete against people who have lots of deep pockets to actually go in that direction. And when you're a smaller company, mid-sized company, you're competing against that. So it's not easy.
Yeah, I already love the fact that you use the word belly to belly.
Yeah.
Because, when I have talked about what our job is and we try to go out and meet clients, I would rather meet a client, and I would say belly to belly, than like over the phone or over a video screen or something like that. And I found myself saying that one day, and I remember thinking, belly to belly, like, do a lot of people say that? I don't know. That just can't. And then I heard someone say the other day, I heard them say kneecap to kneecap. And I'm like, maybe I should change it to kneecap instead of belly to belly.
Certainly. I picked it up in this industry. I've been in this industry for now,
well, you don't have to date yourself.
15 years. Yeah, no, it's not okay. I've been in diverse industries. So, and I picked it up from one of the leaders in a company I worked back in 2010 so it was one of those things that really stuck with me because it is that. It is, you have this trust relationship with people, and you're sitting in a cafe and selling the product what they call peddling the product, right?
Yep.
And that's what happens in our industry.
Yeah.
It's a lot of that. And the pandemic had a big impact to that. Mm-hmm. A negative impact and a positive impact. You could think of it two different ways. It allowed companies like ours to pivot into the inevitable of Zooms and Teams and in the electronic age of actually selling product in a different way through social media.
Yeah. You actually just used a word, because we were talking about crucial conversations today, and you used a word that isn't used in a crucial conversation, but it's really good if it's there in a crucial conversation, and that's trust.
Yeah.
And you just used that word.
For sure.
Which is a great segue. But before we go down too far down the path of like, how do you set up crucial conversations and what do they look like? Why, when I was talking with you, you said, what I'd really love to talk about is crucial conversations. I never would have expected that. Not many people want to talk about that stuff. Not many people want to have a crucial conversation or know what it is. So what's led you down this path of like, this is really important for me and I'd love to cover it on your show?
Sure. So this really was something that I picked up 12, 13 years ago. When I first ran across the book, Crucial Conversations in a prior life, but it was what struck me about it is that it allowed me to grow and to kind of do some self-reflection about who I wanted to be and what I wanted to get out of a particular conversation, and I was not there. And I read the book multiple times, talked about it with my colleagues, and it was important that you just get a little humble and really understand what you're wanting to get out of a conversation, no matter how small it appears to be to you, whether it's with your spouse or whether it's with your CEO. It doesn't matter. It's something that it was important then, and it's more important to me now because I've become a real passionate driver of that with my staff, with my leadership circle, and I have them all the time, and I don't call them crucial conversations; they just are what they are. Mm-hmm. But that you're in a crucial conversation when there's something important that you want out of it, and it's not just about what you want out of it; mm-hmm. It's what the other person wants too. What's gonna come out of the conversation? I guess if they say the rising tide raises all boats, right? Mm-hmm. And those conversations typically should come out in a way where you want them to come out in a way where they're raising the boats from the tide, right? Yeah. And I had a real wonderful mentor of mine that on top of, where I picked up the Crucial Conversations book, I picked up a mentor that I love dearly, and she was an amazing woman. And she was someone who, without the book, without the knowledge of the book. She obviously knew about the book, but she had it already. She was a seasoned executive, worked for Jack Welch at one time, and was someone that I latched onto. She became my mentor, and she was an amazing mentor to me, and watched her behave in these important conversations. Mm-hmm. It was fun to watch because she would start with something that it seemed unimportant, but then the conversation evolves, and she would evolve into make it a crucial conversation. Yeah, and not even using the words, and that's where you build trust. Back to mm-hmm. your point about using the word. If you're having a genuine, authentic conversation where you're allowing the person that you're talking to or the group that you're talking to have a dialogue, a genuine dialogue, the back and forth. I call it rigorous, right? Robust conversations as well. Then you're establishing trust, and you're not overpowering the conversation. You're allowing the audience, both of you, to interact with safety. You're not using your position to overwhelm the person because you want to put your position, and you're not really asking for an opinion. You're just you have to ask for opinions. You have to allow that conversation to flourish.
Yeah. When you know that you are going into a crucial conversation, so whatever the situation is there any pregame routine, if you will, that you mentally go through or physically go through to make sure that you have checked yourself?
That's a great question, because there's an anxiety in the book talked about the how the brain works, right? you get the fight or flight mentality that your brain starts to do certain things to you, and the chemicals in it says that if you're in a nervous state, you're either going to fight or flight, one of the two. And so it helps you understand, first of all, that's there, and secondly is like, you ask what I do. What I do is like, I recently had one with the president of the company, and essentially having and I called it a crucial conversation, only because I wanted to get to clarity very quickly. We didn't have a lot of time for a lot of back and forth. But it's that's where you establish where, hey, this is what I want from the conversation. And when I started to think about how I wanted to have that conversation, what did I want from it? I wanted to have clarity of what was perceived to be the truth versus what is the truth. And that's one of the things that I do. It's like, what do we want from it? And it's not anything. It's not what I wouldn't call it rocket science. It's like, what do you want? What is a good outcome for both sides? Mm-hmm. And in this particular instance, this was a situation where just not being clear about the communication between one another. Sometimes you can sound accusatory against somebody when you're saying something to them versus asking for clarity. And instead of stating a statement, ask for clarity before you start, deep into the conversation. And that's the part that I wanted to get clear in that particular conversation. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I champion it with all my team, right? I've always done that with all my staff, and because it's just so powerful.
I think so. I think at least for me, and I'm glad we're talking about this, and I'm encouraged to go back and reread that book and other books, because it's that I always want to get better at it. I want to get better at having tough conversations and hard, mm-hmm. crucial conversations, and conversations in general, quite frankly. And I have noticed that I will typically have like this little running dialogue that is happening in my head, where perhaps it is a crucial conversation and it is emotions can run high. And I've noticed that I have this dialogue in my head telling myself, stay even keeled, right? Don't become overly emotional and let it impact your tone. Listen completely before I'm going to respond. Don't listen to respond. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the mistake a lot of people make, is they're listening, and as the person who is speaking is wrapping up, the other person's like, all right, I'm ready to go. So as soon as you stop, I'm ready to go, because instead of like really trying to understand what that person is saying.
100%. I think that is the biggest mistake people make is to they're thinking about what they're going to say while this person is talking with you, and you're not even listening. You have to be actively listening to someone, literally listening to the words that they're saying, so that you can frame a proper response to that, yeah. If you so wish, right? Maybe you don't want to at the time. Maybe you're not ready for responding to it. Maybe you say, what, let me think about that, and I'll come back to you, because you might not be ready. I had a situation a couple of weeks ago when one of my staff was in a meeting, and he responded. You have to understand your audience. If the CEO is talking about something, and of course there's the aura of the CEO is you need to be listening, and to understand that the audience is, that person really is that, you're listening to that person, and understand what your response is going to be to a question that you may be asked. It needs to be, crafted accordingly, not to be, smart, just to be smart, but to really measure your words, know your audience, and when you're having a conversation, and because that became an extraordinarily crucial conversation in a flick of a moment. It became, a do or die kind of thing, and so it didn't happen but it became one later, right? Mm-hmm. The conversation it led to a crucial conversation afterwards, yeah. Which you have to deal with.
Earlier you said, Roberto, you watched a mentor from afar have these conversations. And it's not like she went into the conversation saying, hey, this is going to be a crucial conversation. And you watched just a natural conversation start happening. And then you said that it would almost like morph into it. Like she was constructing this crucial conversation to where it just happened.
Yeah.
So that's intentional. That is a design of.
Well, that was her style.
Okay.
Her style to mentor, and she, when I say she mentored me, she never said, Roberto, you need to do this, and then you have to do that, and then do the other. She allowed me to be myself, and because of her, because of that, everybody has a personality, everybody has emotions, and. Some people's the wick is shorter than the other, right? But she really allowed me to be who I am. Very passionate individual I am. I'm a weird CFO/COO in the sense that I'm not. There's a lot of misconceptions about what CFOs actually do, especially in younger companies and younger CEOs, and that really don't understand what the function of a CFO is. They touch everything. Talk about having crucial conversations across the gamut of the entire organization. You are, as a CFO, doing that all the time, and you shouldn't be pigeonholed into finance, accounting, or tax. It's like that's just you have people for that, right? Mm-hmm. It's being able to communicate with everybody across the organization. And so I watched Virginia was her name. She taught me in a way that how she evolved conversations where it was like, well, let's think about that. Let's talk about what someone said. And she already knew what direction to take. Again, she's a seasoned former CFO as well. But she had her own, firm, and so she was consulting us, and it was fun to watch because everybody else obviously there was younger than her, but much less experienced than what she brought to the table. So she's been at the table with the Jack Welch, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like knows how to handle herself, and so I'd watch that, and I just picked up on the small nuances of let's have a conversation and just let it take us where it needs to go. Someone will say, give you a number from, oh, my gut says that's not going to work that way. Well, help me understand why, she'd say. Help me understand what's your basis for that so that we can flesh it out. Mm-hmm. And those are small little moves that she made that I really enjoyed watching her, because with a group that we had at the time, it was fun to watch. I would just say that.
Yeah, you said, well, you didn't say the word, but it was a second thing. So we talked about listening, like you said earlier, like listening is so critical. And then she used curiosity, mm-hmm. genuine curiosity.
Yeah.
And those are, when you think about conversations, those are two things that, I'm always, A, I'm looking for in the other person, and then B, I'm looking for in myself. Maybe I should say, A, I'm looking for in myself, to put that first. That's my first priority. And then B, I'm looking for in that other person, are they truly listening, and are they genuinely curious? Because if they're genuinely curious, it helps with their listening.
For sure.
Because they're not looking to respond, they're looking to understand if they're genuinely curious.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in, and I hope the answer is yes, not to lead the witness, but I really hope your answer is going to be yes, or I'm going to feel really bad. No, have you ever been in a crucial conversation and after it, you're just sitting there going, man, I feel like I failed in that conversation. Like it didn't go the way I thought it was going to go, or I could have done so much better, and I've got to get better at this.
Yes, unequivocally yes, of course.
Good.
I have been in...
I have them daily, I think.
I've been more recently than I like to say, but yeah, they happen because you're not prepared, or you're not allowing yourself to think through what you need to be dealing with in that particular moment, because you're, again, fight or flight. Your chemicals you get triggered, you're a human being, and you're going to get triggered, and you're not going to be prepared for every single conversation. Otherwise, you'd be a robot, and you'd be okay. It would be easy. But when you're triggered with something like that, I think you have to fall back and realize, hey, I'm getting triggered here because of the tone and the tenor of where they're headed with this, the assumptions that are being made that are off, that are completely off, and immediately you start to bow up. And most recently, it's very interesting that you asked that question at this point, because where I'm at now is like, there's conversations that we have, and that there's certain people that are in the conversations will say certain things that's fact, sometimes with no basis to show for the fact, and that in and of itself becomes a trigger point. So you have to learn how to handle that and almost dismiss it. Like, okay, put it aside. Let's park it over here, and we'll talk about that in a more, calm way. But you cannot react. And I've done it many times. I did it a lot more times before I learned about this. I was much younger. I used to work in private banking offshore when I was very young, and the sharpest 30-year-old ever, right? Forget about that. Yeah. I was like, I know
one
everything.
Can teach you anything.
No one
you
can teach me anything. I know everything. I didn't know anything about private banking. I didn't know about offshore banking, but yet they chose me to be there, and because of a person of trust, right? So the managing director of the bank was a lawyer and speaks 7 or 8 languages, and always corrected me on my English writing. I'm like, your 5th language is English. Why are you correcting me? And I thought I knew. I didn't. And there's certain ways you say things, and so that would trigger me. Like, and it's from that point on, I was like, I was an accountant, right? I'm a recovering accountant, by the way. As a CFO, you tend to get away from that and become more finance, more broad-minded about things and not narrow-minded. But I learned a lot in that few years of doing that there's different ways of saying things and not getting triggered. And to this day, 2 weeks ago, I walk into a conversation, I'm like, you're human. It's going to happen. So you can't expect to not ever run into that situation.
Yeah. 2 things on that. Number one is, you're your own worst enemy. You're your own worst critic. And so you walk away from conversations on a daily basis, and it's immediately like, I could have done this better. I could have done this better. I could have done. And that's great. I always think about, like, it's great to recognize those areas. And a lot of people recognize it, but they don't do anything to improve it. They just sit back and like, I know that's a weakness of mine. Okay, well, what are you doing to improve it, right? What are you listening to, or what are you reading, or, how are you getting mentored, or who are you looking at for a mentor to get better? The second thing I was going to say was what I have found personally that has helped me is it's probably been, I would say, since 2018 that I stumbled across Ryan Holiday. And Ryan Holiday is, he's a writer of the Stoics. And so he does a lot of Stoicism and has a bunch of books. And, it's a lot about, you can control yourself, but you cannot control other people. Right. And so have mastery over yourself and your behavior. If it's going to be a lot of traffic, you can't control the other drivers doing crazy things in traffic, but you can control and work to control your temperament. And are you going to let it bother you? Is it worth it letting it bother you to ruin the rest of your day, or when you get home with your wife and your kids and ruin that? It shouldn't be. And so since about then, I've really kind of just every day I listen to something from him. He has a daily podcast. I've read pretty much all of his books and stuff. And I've realized that it wasn't any one thing that he said or one particular day. It's the cumulative effect of every day, the compounding effect of listening to that, where now when I enter them, I have better dialogue internally in my mind of making sure that I control my behavior and my actions. Doesn't always work, but I know it. And then after that conversation, if I'm disappointed in the outcome or how it went, or, I view it, instead of being a failure, I try to view it now as, okay, that's a learning opportunity. Like, I can get better. The next time I have to have a similar conversation, I'm going to be more prepared for it.
You would think that at my stage in my career that the learning is it's less and less, but it's not. You learn even from your subordinates still. And because, one of the things that we have clearly defined in the last few years is that the generational differences between Gen Xers and Alphas and Gen Zs and all, they're just process the things differently. So you have to learn, you have to pick up on the nuances of how they actually pick up information that is getting put down. You could be telling me one thing and someone else is sitting there and they're processing it completely different than I am.
I love that you just said that. So it made me think of two things. There's this saying, I'm going to butcher the saying, I'm the worst at sayings, but it's something like, as the gulf of knowledge grows, you see the shoreline getting bigger. Yeah. And that is, the more knowledgeable that you are on something, the more you realize you don't know.
Yeah.
And so, to your point, as you would think after I've, gotten older in my life, I would get better at these things. I've just realized that there's more I need to learn.
You think about it because you think about who's going to be running the world at this stage, and I'm thinking about, just in my small universe of where I sit, and thinking about the younger people, the younger generation, and I'm not, that old. I'm just thinking that the younger generation is thinking things totally different in the way that I'm a little bit old school when it comes to like presence in the office. I would like for people to be in the office more often. Do I demand them to be in the office more often? No. Do I understand that they can be more productive? They waste less time in traffic. Absolutely. But productivity and dialogue in the way that I think Crucial Conversations really demands it, that you have to have that. You have to see the body language and understand what's happening. So one of the things I get really annoyed by not having a camera on when someone's on a Zoom call or a Teams call, especially when vendors do it. But more importantly, when my staff is on a call and they're not on the camera, I'm like, it bugs me, and it bugs me in a way like I need to address it, but I address it in a way like your camera not working, something like that. But it's you have to get the body language to really get a complete conversation in a lot of instances for me. But you said something about cumulative effect of the things that that was with me with my mentor, right? It wasn't one thing. It wasn't a couple of things. It was the cumulative effect of the learnings from her that I think crafted a big part of how I am. I always say it's not about what you're talking about. It's about how. It's about the how, and how you're saying it. And I picked up a lot of that from her.
Yeah. Why do we want to avoid these conversations so much? I mean, we do anything to avoid them. Right? Most people do.
Yeah, they do because one, they don't. First of all, a lot of people don't have trust in going into a conversation like that. They don't know. They don't trust the person that they're talking with. That's one, and the fear of repercussion, the fear of not getting what you wanted and not knowing how to respond to that, the human emotion. I think that's the biggest thing. Like those are all human emotions of how you walk into a conversation and not unprepared. And it's unnatural to prepare for a conversation, but it's also, you have to go into the conversation knowing what kind of an outcome helps everybody, and that's how you build trust. You won't ever walk into a conversation with that person if it's genuine and authentic trust, and you're walking into a conversation with someone that you do trust. You shouldn't fear it.
Yeah, that's so good. That word trust, it's so hard to develop with people. It's super easy to break.
Yeah.
And as a leader in an organization, I think sometimes you just sit back and you go, man, I hope people know how much I want them to be successful and how much I trust them to do the best that they can at their job. And but not everything is going to go their way, right? Not everything, because people have different perceptions, right? I mean, You have not. I don't want to get into politics, but you got a political candidate out there talking, and you got a Democrat and a Republican listen to the same thing. They hear completely different stories, because they're predisposed and their personal bias of what they're listening for and what triggers them. And so I really hope that leaders are doing a good job in their organization to develop the trust so that they can have crucial conversations, so that their employees know they're doing this for the best of the organization. They're always going to try to do the right thing, and keep that in mind, because the right thing may not be what that employee wants. You know what I mean? I think that it's so hard to do.
It is very hard. I think that the biggest compliment that I can get, or I've gotten, is that I could, presume to be a mentor to somebody. That is, for me, the climax, right? And that someone would come and work with me because the leadership style that I have, or because of the possible mentorship opportunity that they have working with me. And I'm thinking to myself, what? Me, a mentor? No. But what I've done is I've taken what I've learned, in a nutshell, really, from my experiences, the most recent experiences. You pick up from all of your experiences. You pick up from the leaders that you worked with before, and you pick the things that are good. You pick the things that are bad. And you take those away, and you learn from those probably more than the good ones. But you just pass it forward, and that's what I do. I pass it forward to the people that I work with today. I bought the book, Crucial Conversations, about five copies of the book, and we handed it to my staff about 6 months ago, a year ago, because it crossed my mind again, right? It just becomes it never left. It just, you're actively in the space doing, having crucial conversations, and you're not calling them crucial conversations. Yeah. They just are what they are. And so one of the things that I learned is that going into any new organization is that the honesty and the robustness of real conversations amongst the younger staff isn't there, and it hasn't, and it's just not there. And it's not something that you can't force it either. You have to teach them, and it becomes more and more difficult if they're not comfortable having those conversations. So they have to see it. They have to see it happen, and it's hard to share that while you're having more private conversations at a higher level, right? So you try to invoke it within those meetings that they're in. Try to show them, let's have a conversation, and it sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes it comes back like, well, this happened, and I wasn't comfortable, and you made me feel like, well, I was completely. I apologize first of all. It was unintentional. Yeah. But I wanted to get some meat off the bone there to see if we could get a conversation going and have it. And sometimes it has worked, where people start to have that, not arguments, but robust conversation about who owns a project, what's, who's actually owner of that product, and what does that mean? Yeah. And so you do influence people by kind of, trying to have these conversations within them, right? Like I learned from my mentor.
Yeah. It's funny. I try to, listening to you, I try to remind myself, I think it's Brene Brown that says, being kind is being clear. And that is being kind. In giving clear instruction, or the outcome of the meeting needs to be very clear, and you've had multiple opinions of what should happen. You as the leader have the final say as to what the outcome, and everybody's had a chance to voice what their opinion is, to think, I think this is the right thing. But leaving that meeting with a lack of clarity is not kind to everybody in the room. And I think I try to remember all these little sayings to help me.
It's so funny you say that, David, because the book has a chapter, Start with Heart. I don't know if you remember that or not. Start with your heart, or start with heart. And you have to understand that all of it, and by the way, crucial conversations are not just in business, they're in your personal life as well. So you do start with kindness, start with your heart, and make sure that you're leading with that. Because if you're not, then it's disingenuous to the conversation as a whole, and it doesn't come to fruition.
Yeah. Okay, Roberto, I'm going to fire one last question at you, and hopefully you can give someone our listeners very practical advice that they could begin. We record this on a Thursday, so tomorrow's Friday. And so what is the best advice you can give someone who could practically take step one in having better, crucial conversations?
Well, not to state it to make it easy, I would start with the book, to be honest with you, because it's an easy read, it's an easy listen, but I think that you have to be, aside from the book and aside from picking up the nuances of what the book suggests to pick up, and two, you want to be honest with yourself, be kind to yourself, allow yourself to make mistakes, but know going into any conversation, what is the ideal outcome for everybody involved. And it's one of those things that you can go into, a controller can go into a CFO's office and say XYZ, whatever it is, right? What is it that the controller wants out of that conversation? Or a CFO goes into a CEO's office and goes in having a conversation about expansion. You know, what is it that you want from that conversation? You know, what the outcome that you want that gets that conversation moving in the direction that you want, and that it would be acceptable to the other side. And if you're not authentic about that, and you're just wanting to be right about it, you're going to lose, because it's about personal wins, and you don't want it to be just that.
Yeah. Man, that's so good. I'm so thankful that we got to chat, and you came on our podcast today. Conversations are so critical, because that's what makes the world go round. That's business. That's relationship building, whether it's in your personal life, as you just indicated towards the end here, and your professional life. And they can influence your future and your family's future and your company's future. And I just think it's something that we all need to practice and get better at, including, I would put myself number one on that list always.
Yeah,
getting better.
Thank you so much for allowing me to talk about that. I had no idea that would be something that in a conversation like this I would be allowed to speak about, which to me it's so crucial in organizations. That's one of the key things that's missing in, surprisingly, the poor communication in organizations. That's what why they fail.
Yeah, amen to that.
Yeah.
Roberto, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Yeah, and to our listeners, hopefully you got so much out of that episode and learning from Roberto. He was fantastic. And go out and get the book. You know, it's on Amazon. There's a Barnes & Noble I pass all the time at Campbell and Coit. It just popped up, at least in my line of sight. I thought they were all gone. So go find that book. Too. It's on Audible. Listen to it. Just anything to start getting it in your daily life. And it's something that I need to go back through and definitely thumb through and look at my notes. And until next time.
If you're looking for the next step in your career or the missing piece for your team, Unity Search has you covered. Whether it's finance and accounting, tax services, information technology, or human resources, Unity Search is here for you with experienced and dedicated hiring professionals. Reach out today and take the next step. Unity Search, placing you first.